Blood of Martyrs. A warjack absorbs and learns from the personality of its warcaster over time. Emotion bleeds into its cortex, informing its behavior and disposition. It is no surprise then that the favored warjack of the Flame of Sorrows fights with all the bitter resolve of its mistress. The death of Menites by infidel hands spurs the machine to violence. Its hull spattered with the blood of the faithful, the jack weaves through the midst of the enemy, eluding their strikes with impunity. Menoth grants his servants. Blood of Martyrs unfailingly seeks out those who have laid low the righteous and delivers unto them the consequences of their transgressions. The jack's desire for vengeance is unsatiable. The Protectorate scribes have likened the machine to the first knights of Menoth, who lived only to mete out retribution upon the enemies of the faith. The warjack originally entered Thyra's service in the closing months of the Signarin occupation of Sol. The young warcaster and her forces fought tirelessly against the invaders, pushing them back street by bloody street. Although scores of the jacks were reduced to scraps, her favored crusader survived. During that particularly savage engagement, to which the majority of Thyra's soldiers fell, the jacks laid into the enemy with such violence that the Signarns fled just when the victory seemed assured. The young warcaster recognized that Menoth had sent this warjack to guard her and mirror her rage she felt. She rearmed it with the weapons required to carry out its holy destiny and named it the Blood of Martyrs, knowing that its two blades would strike down an unbeliever for every drop of righteous blood the enemy had spilled. It has since joined her in countless difficult and harrowing engagements, sometimes cloaked by Thyra's magic to pass unseen among the faithless before she urges it to strike. Thyra has conducted an unceasing series of incursion strikes behind enemy lines, taking only a few troops and her most trustworthy machines, as she seeks out key enemy leaders to eliminate. In these fights, Blood of Martyrs has served many roles, including heavy-hitting finisher, fearsome diversions to draw away foes, and interceptors of enemies' jacks that would otherwise have thwarted its mistress. There have been many times it might have fallen and been left behind, as has been the fate of others, lesser machines, yet Blood of Martyrs still stands, as though touched by the same greater purpose as Thyra herself. And as you're probably aware, this is Thyra's personal warjack, a double blade wielding crusader chassis. So yeah, and for Thyra, who is a very, well, I believe she is a sister of the flame, so she's very, well, assassin-esque, if you will. Having a crusader heavy jack as her particular favored warjack is kind of incredible for the more sneaky of the assassin type warcasters. So yeah, makes him even more terrifying, and his ability to take on way larger warjacks when you're in the midst of battle or behind enemy lines, that probably makes him incredibly useful. But let's read over his Mark III to Mark IV changes and see why he is so useful to Thyra and her abilities. Oh, and slight correction, it is the Daughters of the Flame, not the Sisters of the Flame. I don't know where I got Sisters of the Flame. Might be a weird dimensional shift there, but Daughters of the Flame are the assassin group. Let's get back to it. And as always, let's start with the stat line. He is a speed 5. He is a mat 8, so he's actually gone up in mat, making him even more detrimental in melee. He is a defense 12, also making him more dodgy than his counterparts, and making him more dodgy than his original. And his arm is still at a grand total of 19. And of course he is a heavy warjack, so all of the abilities like slam, trample, and headbutt are his as well, so he can just still knock out all the normal stuff. Let's read over his fun abilities. So his bond, his thing that makes him Thyra's warjack, is it's bonded to her, so it begins the game bonded to her. Not considered bonded if it's under your opponent's control, all that standard stuff that goes with the bonding. But she gives it, while bonded, apparition. So during the control phase, you can place a model with apparition anywhere completely within 2 inches of its current location. And for that ability alone, you can place it so it's placed, so it's not leaving, like if it was in combat, it's not leaving the combat zone, so it doesn't lose the ability to charge out. So you could literally take him, place him 2 inches outside of melee range of somebody, and then when he does his normal activation, he is no longer engaged and he can go anywhere he needs to, which makes him a lot more mobile than any of the heavy warjacks that we've seen so far. So that is a very, very useful ability, and does make sense with Thyra having that ability to get around. The second ability cast is Hand of Vengeance, and this is the exact same as it was in Mark III to Mark IV. When one or more friendly faction warrior models are destroyed or removed from play by an enemy attack while within 5 inches of this model gains +2 to its melee attack and melee damage rolls. So just so we know, with that +2 to its melee attack and melee damage rolls, it kicks this guy up to a mat of 10 and a POW of 19, which is staggering because that makes him hit better than the Butcher, who is the melee beast of, anybody, really. And and swinging at 19s, he's hitting harder than pretty much anything. So you want to keep him around lots of units because even though you don't want your units to die, if they die, it makes him even more of a terrifying ordeal for the enemy. His last ability is Sidestep, which also makes sense, being Thyra's personal warjack. Sidestep: when this model hits an enemy model with its initial melee attack or a melee special attack, it can advance up to 2 after the attack is resolved. So if you have him charge in, make his first initial attack, after that attack, he can move 2 inches, getting himself even deeper into enemy lines and allowing him to, even more decimate the enemy as well. So you can get him into combat, you can get him out of combat. He is very mobile for a heavy warjack. So, and that, all makes sense. Keeps him super, super mobile. Now, another thing, we hinted at that you probably didn't realize is his weapons have gotten better. So originally, he had a power of 16 on his weapons. It has been bumped up to 17, making him more of the heavy warjack that he is, giving him all the fun stuff there. He has a range of 1, and of course he has a standard mat of 8 until it gets ramped up to 10 when people start dying around him. But then he also has Grievous Wounds on his weapon. That's the same as Mark III. So Grievous Wounds: a model hit with this weapon loses tough and cannot have damage removed from it for 1 round. So that is great, and that is even more great when you're having him go up against things like War Beast, that if you clear out one of their spirals, their warlock cannot heal him up, or anybody can heal him up. So this guy can just go ham on any type of dude that would rely on that healing, whether it be a Warp Wolf or just standard guys with multi-health boxes. You want this guy to go in there. But this guy is staggering. He's fast. He's deceptively much faster than you would think a heavy warjack should be. But with Thyra as his commanding warcaster, he is phenomenal to have on the field and to keep him around her. So I do not look forward to ever having to go up against this guy in the future.